And that was kind of like when Elon Musk, when he said about 10 years ago, and he said, you know what, in 10 years, everyone's going to be driving electric cars. And we all kind of looked at him like, I don't know, that sounds a little crazy, right? No, he was an innovator. He jumped in, and very few people at that time, they actually did buy Teslas. The next group of people, and I don't know about you, but have you noticed a lot of Teslas on the road nowadays? So the next one are early adapters. Now the early adapters, they have a higher tolerance for risk. And they'll just jump in, a lot like the innovators, but they just take a little bit more time.
Okay. So would you cut it short a little bit, or would you just keep on going when you get one of those? Because if you were talking to my husband, he'd be like, is there another question?
And okay, and you know what, sometimes that happens, it's valid. What you are saying is valid.
Yes.
No, you're exactly correct. That's valid, that is valid. So, you know, if I come across that, then it might get shortened a little. But if I know what these 5 rooms are, I'm not going to leave that call without without having visited all 5 rooms.
At least 1 or 2.
Exactly.
At least 1 or 2 things out of each room.
I need to know all that beforehand.
Yeah.
And if they really don't have time, and by the way, if you notice at the beginning, I ask permission.
Yes.
Do you have a moment, you know, that I can, yeah.
And everybody will say, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
and
then you're going to see it change as it goes on.
I want you to know, when I first started doing this, I had the same thought as you. All right? My coach Aaron does this, and what's interesting about this script is it's actually setting up the listing presentation script, because I'm saying and reiterating a lot of the stuff that I'm saying here in the listing presentation. So you know how it is when people hear things once, they have to hear things 7 times before they start to believe it. So that's part of this. It's a valid point. You just kind of have to gauge it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yes.
No, but I was going to just add, but also I think you can adapt to the personality. Her personality is the same way that you present it. Maybe a driver is even that what is important for her, for the driver, maybe just I want to get to.
Exactly.
So
Is it okay for me to pass this around, you guys, if you're going to speak? Cool. Thank you. No, that's perfect. No, you're correct. So next person. Yeah, you're Freddie. That makes a lot of sense.
Because I think you perfectly match to her personality.
Correct.
Now, if it was like maybe like another personality that I'm sure you're gonna adapt to, because it's gonna be the different needs.
Correct. Yes.
In the way you talk about. So can you mention a driver say, you know, I need to move because I want to go to here, there, so your personality gonna change as well.
That's valid. You're exactly correct. So what I've discovered though is ever since I started using this, my brain to begin with, when I had to go through this whole script, had that thought. And what I would caution you against is allow yourself to not have that thought.
Okay.
Because my brain was like, oh, this is too long. What I'll tell you is I came from a presentation that made me predominantly the boss, and I would be telling people what to do as opposed to asking. And if you notice, it's a very it's a very courteous way of asking, instead of saying, so what do you think your home's worth? What's the least that you'll take? It's a very comfortable way of getting those responses. How many of you have asked a seller, how much do you owe on your house? Well, what do you need to know that for? And gotten that response. I've gotten that response. But if we ask it, I'm curious, I'd like to prepare a net sheet for you because my job is to show you exactly what you're going to walk away from the sale with. Now, who's that about? It's about them. Yeah. Okay, good question. Anything else? Yes. Go ahead. Can we use the mic? Would you mind? Okay.
Well, I was going to say something.
Go ahead.
Denise was very succinct to her questions and her
Yep.
answers. But the majority of the time, people want to talk and tell you what's going on in their lives. So what I think is, when you make these calls, you have to allow proper time for yourself. You don't want to rush them. And people, sometimes you just have to be a good listener. And hear everything that they want to say. It's back to the Dale Carnegie, how to win friends and influence people. People like to talk about themselves, so you don't want to interject things all the time about your own life too.
I think that's a good point, Teresa. The thing that we want to be careful and ready with is maybe even start the beginning of the pre-qual with, you know what, before I go into my next meeting, if we say that, right, then we can always reference that. It's a good way. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Brett.
What I like hearing is that you're complimenting, and then you're doing some restating in a different direction.
Yep.
Or even the re-questioning, which is wrapping them back in to the conversation. So it's kind of just, you know, the reciprocity of how the conversation is rolling, and it just
Yep.
makes it very smooth.
Repeat and reprove. Yes. And please go ahead.
So, I think some of the things got answered. Mortgage first. But would you say that other than for us sharpening our skills
Mm-hmm.
in the presentation,
Mm-hmm.
that was amazing.
Thank you.
I think that a lot of times we all get that objection, no matter what you're selling, roof, mortgages, houses, whatever.
Right.
But I think I found in the past that a lot of times I start getting the same objection from everybody. So maybe something that I have to handle in the presentation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think something that works for me sometimes is, okay, this is one of the biggest transactions you're ever going to make. I didn't need your full attention. I can't tell you, compared to 2004, let's say, when I started the business again. It seems like people have more time than now. I don't know if it's me or maybe that's...
Our attention span has diminished.
With
With the internet, TikTok, yeah, all that. Reels are shorter, yeah.
We got an app, so now I'm gonna save 2 hours a day.
Yep.
Doesn't mean that I got another 2 hours. Guess what? We all do. I mean, whether you agree with it or not, we jam 3 more hours of it.
Right.
And now we got this other app. So it just feels like it's everybody a loan officer or a real estate agent nowadays. You know, so I think that's a challenge for all of us. But I think handling the presentation, breaking that down, I think that definitely will help a lot. I work with a lot of Spanish-speaking people, actually, because that's, you know, my heritage, of course.
Well, so here's the thing. I think us coming from that perspective just doesn't work anymore, because what's happened in our industry is, if you notice, people can go online and they can find someone that much faster. They can know what their house is worth before we even go talk to them. So we can't be the domineer in a conversation anymore, because the industry has changed. We have to come from a place of allowing them to understand and bringing them to self-discovery. Does that make sense?
Okay.
But we're going to just meet resistance if we come from, I'd be very careful about using that tone.
Got it.
Does that make sense, Roberto?
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Miko, are we ready?
Yeah, just a second.
Okay.
What was the name of your coach that you mentioned, Aaron?
Aaron Novello.
Novello?
Novello. He's all over YouTube. Actually, he's a business partner of mine as well. Yes. So what we're going to do next is now I want to share some information, because this year, recently, I made a change in my life and in my business. Market Center, locally, you know the Market Center that I work for, okay? Her and I work for the same company. And I even invested in a title company. And I still had, at that point, I hadn't found the mechanism that would allow me the opportunity to get off that transaction treadmill, until somebody exposed me to the business model of eXp. So what I would propose or suggest is a few things. If you're here and you think that you know something about eXp and you're not with eXp yet, I would make a request. Please forget whatever it is that you think you know. And just be open for the next 20 to 30 minutes, because here's what I do know. That one of the best questions that you can ask a teacher, a coach, or a mentor is, what is it that I currently believe to be true that isn't? What is it that I currently believe to be true that isn't? Because that's how we really grow quicker. Does that make sense? What I also know to be true is the most expensive thing that I can own is a closed mind. It's cost me a lot of money over time. My mind was closed to this opportunity for over a year. I was like, because I own part of the brokerage. And I was like, nope, 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 I got it. I don't need to hear about it. The other thing that I'm well aware of is that we don't see with our eyes, we see with our mind. Because if the mind is blind to the possibility, my eyes will be blind to the opportunity. So if you would just have an open mind through this, I would appreciate it very much. Now, one Because once you see what we're about to look at, if you're not with eXp, once it's explained to you clearly and concisely, if you're a hardworking, ambitious, and smart person, you won't be able to unsee what I'm about to show you. So let's begin and get into the conversation, shall we? So, why is eXp the fastest growing real estate company in the world, in the planet? And what I mean by that is, in the last 3 years, we've gone from 20,000 agents to 88,000 agents in just 3 years. Why are top producers and agents that own parts of market centers leaving their businesses and coming to eXp? They must know something, but perhaps you don't. The harsh realities of the business is what I'd like to cover next. The harsh realities are that agents are not planning for their financial freedom. We're on a transaction treadmill, and we're not able to get off. And they're not being coached, which is a problem. 80% of agents that enter the business when they get their license, within a year, they're doing something else. So the attrition rate is high. And that's why having a coach or having access to a mentor or someone that will guide you in this industry is key. It's critical. So what if you could never pay for coaching, training, technology ever again? That'd be pretty awesome, wouldn't it? So why is eXp disrupting the industry so massively? Well, here's why. I had to explain to my 16-year-old host son, Alex, what Blockbuster Video was, because he just didn't have a clue, right? So we've all lived through some seismic shifts in the way that we live and operate. And what I had to explain is that they were very successful. I mean, Blockbuster was a $6 billion company, and they dominated the movie rental business, right? You remember them. They believed that people were always going to be willing to pay $5 late fees and go drive to get their movies, right? I can remember being in Blockbuster asking the the rep that was in Blockbuster and saying, what do you think of this Netflix stuff? And they said, it's nothing. So that's like the real estate industry saying that agents are going to be willing to pay splits that never cap, right? It's kind of similar. What do you think was the technology that disrupted Blockbuster and made it possible for Netflix to just take off and do what they did? Pardon?
Oh, the technology.
The technology.
Internet.
Streaming, the internet. You're exactly correct. That's exactly right. So movies and entertainment now went away from being at brick and mortar. They were anytime, anywhere. You could get it anywhere, anytime you wanted. It doesn't matter where you're at. There was also another company called Circuit City. How many of you remember we would buy our appliances there? We would buy our electronics there, right? That was a huge company. And I can remember they were around for years. And they dominated the home electronic and appliances industry. And Amazon started into the business, right? If you remember that. And they started selling electronics and that. And it took a 59-year-old company down to its knees. They had to liquidate $1 billion in inventory. And now Circuit City doesn't exist since 2009 anymore. Again, what was the technology that allowed that to happen? The internet, yep. And that's exactly what's happening to traditional real estate brokerage today. So because what's interesting is the CEO of Blockbuster said neither Redbox nor Netflix are even on our radar screen in terms of competition. Now, how audacious is that? That someone actually could, in that position, I mean, if he could have bought Netflix for $50 million and he would have been set. He would have been going on book tours, he would have been doing consulting, and he would have been set for life. So, here's the interesting thing, because here's the question I have for all of you. Listen to me. Between 2020 and 2021, did any of us go to the office? No. And did it matter? No, we still functioned. We sold a ton of real estate, right? So we were all doing this model, the no physical brick and mortar model, anywhere, anytime real estate, and we didn't even realize we were doing the eXp model already. So, and yet we were still paying for the office, we still had splits that never capped, and we still had those fixed expenses of an office. So check this out. Like I said, the CEO of Blockbuster, he didn't have that vision, and now his company doesn't exist anymore. I can remember a time whenever I wanted to travel or go out of town, the only place I could stay was one of two places. I could stay with friends or family, or I could stay in a hotel, right? Is that the case anymore? No, we have Airbnb. We also have VRBO. So we have access and options. What's interesting now is that you can actually see Airbnb has a higher valuation than Hilton Hotels, and they don't even own any real estate. How is that possible? The internet. So here's what the traditional real estate model is. Traditional real estate for the last 100 years operates like feudalism, where there's a king and a queen at the top, there's the CEO of the company, and they sell regions. We'll call those the nobles. Now, the nobles go out and they purchase these regions. It costs millions of dollars to buy a region, by the way. The nobles go out and they sell individual franchises, like offices to the knights, who then they go out and the knights go out and recruit agents. In this case, we call them peasants because they don't own anything. And so in this case, they do all the work, and all the money flows back up to the top to the king and queen, and the agents never own anything. They basically are renting the business, right, from the brokerage. Here's a question I have for you. At the end of your year this year, when you're finished selling all your transactions, other than your real estate commissions, what can you expect to receive? Maybe a little plastic award and a barbecue, right? Okay. So, do you know that what I got for making $750,000 in one calendar year, I got a plastic award and I got a barbecue. So that's the traditional model of real estate. Now keep in mind, the word stable has two definitions. Reliable and consistent, and the other is an enclosure that keeps animals in one place. Okay? Then another company comes along and they were like, maybe we can share in the profits. And keep in mind, this wasn't out of benevolence. What happened was half the company left and the owner said, what can we do to make this different? You remember, we've heard this story, right? And he said, and the agents were like, well, if you let us see the books, if we have financial transparency, and you share in the profits. And this was revolutionary. This had never happened in the industry. And that's the company with the red. I mean, I was with them for 15 years, and I owned part of the office, and the company went up to 160 to 170,000 agents. I mean, they were huge. It made a significant difference. No other model has ever done that before. The issue with this model is it's based in the physical. So it has physical expenses, it's brick and mortar, and when I left my office, the expenses were anywhere between $40,000 and $85,000 a month, just to keep the office functioning and going. And not all offices operate the same way. Some offices are less profitable and some are more, so there may or may be profit to share. Now the internet comes along, and what the internet does, or allows eXp to do, is it allows them to get rid of the regions, they get rid of the owners, they also get rid of the staff, and the agent becomes the owner. So they get rid of all those expenses. And what that does is it provides lead generation technology, training, health insurance, stock awards, revenue share, and collaboration. That's how we went from 20,000 agents to 88,000 agents in just 3 years' time, because of the value that is being brought. So, if you're taking notes, write this down. You're not going to get rich renting out your time. You must own equity. So here's a question I have for you guys. If you're not already with eXp, are you getting an upside to the company that you're working for? In other words, at the end of the year, the company that you're working for, other than commissions, what are you receiving for your time and your effort? And I know what the answer is. Nothing. We know that. I've lived that. So eXp has a model where they compensate you like an owner through the equity and the revenue share opportunity, but the brokerage is in the cloud. So, which allows eXp to eliminate all of those expenses, monthly expenses. You get, as the agent, you get compensated like an owner. And I don't know about you, but I like to get compensated like an owner. I was an owner, and I still wasn't getting compensated like an owner because of the number of expenses that the brokerage had. So, I mean, it would be nice to get compensated like an owner since we do most of the work, right? So the reason why this is so exciting is this. Have you ever seen this, the innovation curve? The innovation curve makes this really exciting. Innovators are when something brand new, they just jump right in. 2.5% of people in the world are innovators. And that was kind of like when Elon Musk, when he said about 10 years ago, and he said, you know what, in 10 years, everyone's going to be driving electric cars. And we all kind of looked at him like, I don't know, that sounds a little crazy, right? No, he was an innovator. He jumped in, and very few people at that time, they actually did buy Teslas. Now the next group of people, and I don't know about you, but have you noticed a lot of Teslas on the road nowadays? Yeah, exactly. So the next one are early adapters. Now the early adapters, they have a higher tolerance for risk, and they'll just jump in, a lot like the innovators, but they just take a little bit more time. The early majority, they have a lower tolerance for risk. They need enough people to do it for them to feel comfortable and feel like it's not as risky. That's 34% of the growth that will happen with a company. The late majority, they have FOMO, so they're feeling like they're going to miss out on something. That's 34%, right? And the laggards are people that still have flip phones, right? Or they have an AOL email address. So, but notice, 68% of all the growth is between the early majority and the late majority. And I firmly believe, just like I believe that the sky is blue and grass is green, that we are at the point of the early majority. We're at the beginning stages of this. Enough top producing agents have decided, and owners of companies have decided to make this shift, to make it to where people are comfortable. And that's how it's grown from 20,000 agents to 88,000 agents in a span of just 3 years. So remember I shared with you that 9 out of 10 people don't own a Tesla. So does Tesla have a lot of opportunity? Well, 9 out of 10 agents are not with eXp yet. So we have room to grow, 100%. Now, I believe in the next 10 years that 50% of all agents will be with a cloud-based brokerage, which means there's going to be 400 to 500,000 agents that will be doing cloud-based brokerage. So here's a question. Is this your plan? Are we going to be sitting there selling real estate when we're 70 years old? Well, I mean, if you love it, right? Because you just love real estate. I mean, I read an article recently where there was an agent that's 100 years old and still selling real estate. I don't know about you guys, but if I'm like 70 and I'm still talking about contacts and talking about listings, then, you know, I think I'm doing something wrong. I haven't planned well. Does that make sense? So whenever somebody says it to me, I'm just kind of like, God, you haven't dealt with enough people. So this chart comes from a book called The Cash Flow Quadrant. And that's been written by Robert Kiyosaki. Maybe some of you have read that book or are familiar with it. So the left side is where there is no leverage. And we'll start with the top right. That's the employees. The employees will use language like, you know what, I need benefits. I need more vacation. And then the bottom left are going to be the self-employed. Those are doctors, accountants. That's going to be like attorneys or real estate agents. These people have a tremendous opportunity to make money. However, historically, they haven't been good with saving or with investing that money. Now, the right side starts with business owners, and they own a system which can cause a business to function. And then also investors are at the bottom right. 95% of the population of the world, or 95% of all agents, are on the left side of this graph. So what eXp provides is an opportunity for its agents to be on the right side of the graph automatically, because they can have an opportunity to have ownership and invest. So here's a question. What's your I'm done number? In other words, where you no longer have to work for money and you can work for impact. Or because you want to, because it's something meaningful, or you are enjoying the people that you're working with. So for a lot of people, that number would be $10,000 a month. Typically, it's going to cover housing, transportation, food, and insurance, which is all of the majors, right? That's what's most important to most people, and it would make us financially free and independent. Most people don't do the math, so they don't realize that that's going to be $2.4 million invested at 5% to be able to earn $10,000 a month residual income, which means technically you'd have to earn about $5 million, because after taxes, after we pay our expenses, that's what it comes down to. So the question is, how much of that do you already have? $5, $50,000, $1 million? It's just something to be conscious of as we're making these choices. How much do you still need to invest? How much are you saving per year to get you to that goal? And then how many years will it take for you to save the difference? The rest of your career? I don't know, 20 years, 50 years? What does that look like? Because now we're being intentional about it, when we actually can make a difference. So here's an example for those of you who are asking a question about the returns from revenue share. If you ever was wondering what's possible. This is my coach, Aaron Novello. He's been with the company for about 18 months. He personally is responsible for bringing 38 agents into the company. At the time this slide was made, I believe he's at like 42 right now. What's interesting is there are 188 agents that have come in under him. So as you can see, this is not only compounding, this is something that works without us having to do something. So his revenue share last month was $11,250. Now what's interesting is you'd have to invest $2.7 million at 5% to earn that. He earned that without selling a house. I've spent the last 21 years of my career selling 1,200 homes to get enough money to invest to pay me about $5,000 a month in residual income. Through investing, through working hard, buying homes. Now this is bigger than that in just 17 months because this is leveraging and it compounds. That's how unbelievable powerful this is. And the reason is, and I want you guys to understand this, this isn't hocus pocus, this is not magic, it's not a scam. Here's what Aaron shared with me, because he did this 18 months ago, and I looked at him and I said, okay, you can't be my coach anymore. He actually was part ownership in a brokerage in South Florida, the same way that I was, with the same company. And he left. And he said, Mark, he said, first they laughed at me, he said, then they called me crazy, and then he said they called me a crook, because they didn't believe that this was possible. And now do you know what they call him for? Advice. Advice. How can I do this is what people are looking for. So really what this is it's YouTube for real estate. So YouTube went to their content creators. YouTube doesn't create content. There are people that make videos, make content, like we make YouTube content, right? And they said, we need to come up with something that's mutually beneficial to both of us. And they said, if you have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time, we'll give you half of the revenue that is generated from your ads on your content. Is that a scam? No, it's a revenue share business model, right? That caused YouTube to become the second largest search engine in the planet, followed by Google. Google found out what they were doing and they said, well, we have to buy YouTube. They saw the value in it, right? eXp says to their agents, if you can bring agents to our platform, which all it is, a brokerage is all it is a platform for doing transactions, right? They said, if you can bring agents to our platform and they do deals, we'll give you a portion of the revenue that they generate from the $16,000 cap. It's the exact same thing as YouTube. It's really no different. So here's what one of our senior partners, Lars Hendenberg, has done. So Lars has been with the company for 3 years. Now, Lars is a monster, I will tell you. He has a coaching company, and he does amazing things. But his revenue share, he brought 42 agents in the company, you can see at the top there. Currently, he's at 1,660 agents, not 1,308. And his revenue share last month was 85,826. It's very real what's possible here. It's a business that runs right alongside your business. In order for you to receive $85,000 in a month, you'd have to invest $20 million, or really earn $50 million and then take expenses and taxes out of that. So how many people on this planet will actually have the opportunity to do that is like infinitesimal. It's like 0.0001%. But if you choose the right vehicle, you can. Because if two people that are both very smart and hardworking, and the other person is very smart and hardworking, one chooses a vehicle that compounds and is leveraged, like this, what I'm talking about. The other does not. If you check in with them in 20 years, the other person that's leveraged and that is using a compounding model will be 30 times ahead of the other person. And it's not because they're smarter, it's not because they're more hardworking, because both of them were smart and hardworking. It's because of the vehicle that the other person chose. Now, some agents will say to me, Mark, I don't want to do this attraction thing. That's not my thing. Okay, that's fine, but don't. It's okay. I would recommend that you consider it or even just look at it, because it's one of the greatest wealth building opportunities that we'll probably have in our lifetime. And we make it easy because we do these trainings and we do these events, and all you have to do is invite people to them. So we'll do the presentation and we'll take it from there, but that's fine if you don't want to do the agent attraction type thing. As far as being compensated like an owner, remember the question that I asked you at the end of this working year, what will you have to show other than for your time that you've invested, other than your commissions? And again, the answer, keep in mind, is nothing. So eXp is a publicly traded company. They are in the S&P 600 cap companies. The S&P 500 is the most successful large cap companies. The S&P 600 is the most successful mid-cap companies. Which means you can't politic your way in, you can't buy your way in, it's a self-cleansing mechanism. They have $140 million in the bank, they have no debt, and they pay stock options. So there's 6 different ways that you can earn equity. When you sell your first property calendar year, you get $200 in stock. When one of your partners that you invited to the company sells their first property, they get $400 in stock. When you earn $80,000 in GCI, and you do 20 deals on top of that, they give you half of your cap back, $8,000 in company stock. When you cap, you receive $300 in stock, and when you do $80,000 in GCI plus 20 deals on top, you go to a couple eXp events and you teach in their metaverse, like a class, you get the full $16,000 in cap back in company stock, is how it works. They also allow you to use 5% of your commissions to buy stock at a 10% discount. That's like what real corporations do. Like if you worked at Nike, they would do that. So I was a top agent in a company for 15 years, and I owned part of the office. When I left the company, how much do you think I left with? That's exactly correct, nothing. So here's, what I'm about to show you is my screen, briefly. I gotta go back just a couple. Okay. My share screen, and again, this is not to make it about me, but just I want financial transparency. I want you to see what's real. This is not hocus pocus. So I've been with the company since February of 2023. I did $80,000 in GCI and 20 deals on top. So I was awarded $8,000 in stock. Also, I have partners that have sold property. So the current value of the stock that I was awarded is, what is that, $7,044. And then I invested 5% of my commissions over the last 8 months at a 10% discount. So the total value of my stock in 8 months is $22,498. My cap is $16,000. It's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? So you mean to tell me that I was working for this company for the last 15 years and I would have walked away with $350,000 if I was with eXp versus with the company that I was at, if I kept on this pace. But instead I walked away with a piece of plastic. Wow, that's unbelievable. So that said, we have a choice. What do you believe would be easier for you? To save 4.8 to 7.2 million so that you've got that passive, ready to go income, or maybe to attract 10 or 15 agents in the next 2 to 3 years? So, Aaron's, what do you get? What comes with being in the company? What does partnership with elite builders look like? So anybody can bring someone into eXp, by the way. And yet the real value is what does that firm that you're coming in under offer you as far as value? What can we offer that's in addition to what a traditional brokerage might offer? So here's an example. My coach, Aaron, he does a group coaching call once a week. And where he's teaching skills, over the last 20 years, he's sold 2,000 homes, 80% were listings, and he coaches us on how to get those listings. He's also, that is a $250 a month investment that's absolutely free, so you get free coaching. Also, Aaron does 2 mastermind groups, and he has role play groups. The role play groups you have access to where you're going to role play 5 times a week. You get paired with a partner. You do nothing except for show up to the call. You have to show up, otherwise after 3 times you're asked to leave the call. So it does hold you accountable. And that's $1,000 per year value. You get that for free. He also has 2 mastermind groups. One is for agents that are earning $250 to $500 in GCI. And then the second is the one that I'm in, which is agents earning $750 plus. And those are $400 a month typically. Those are absolutely free. Aaron's sponsor is Jose Luis Morales. He has the Jose Luis Morales University. Jose had the opportunity to record all of his coaching calls, and he also recorded opportunities with clients. So he's recorded things like listing presentations, his prospecting calls. He's got that all recorded for the last 5 years that you would have access to. And then Lars, who wrote the book Scale or Die. Agents, scale or die. In other words, how can they still have their life and have a business? Now Lars, you'll have access to his coaching. He was in Gary Keller's top 100. He earned $2.6 million per year, and he worked 50 hours a year in his business. Now he coaches teams that do 200 to 1,000 deals per year, and his coaching, monthly coach or weekly coaching call would be available to you for free. All of his systems would be available to you for free. So we've been very intentional to give people access to a value stack where, it's powerful. You're going to have access to agents that are, between them, are selling 6,000 homes a year, and that all becomes free to you. So typically when we get to this point in our conversation, one of 2 things happen. Number 1, people realize, wow, this is awesome. The value stack is amazing. I have access to the rev share. I have access to ownership in the company. Who do I see? Who do I speak to sign up? The other is, and if you are one of those agents and someone invited you here today, please see them after this and make sure that you connect with them so that you can begin that process. The second thing is, that makes sense, is, some people will say, I got to think about this. I got to pray about it. I got to talk to my significant other about this. And that's okay too. Whatever you decide, we love you guys. We're going to still come forward with the education. And I think at this point, it's time for us to have a little lunch. If you have questions, you can see me after, you can contact me after, and I'm grateful for your time. I want to